Good evening to everyone. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Today, we hold the second session of the cycle of webinars which are exploring the theme Sound and Music in Child's Development, which is a part of BR project Art Infinity Radio, creating sound art for babies, toddlers, and vulnerable groups. That has been co-funded by the Creative Europe program of the European Union. The theme of our second webinar is Sound, Music, and the Brain, Educational and Clinical Implications. I'm honored to host two interviewees, top experts in their research and practice field, Dr. Albinca Pesek and Dr. Zvezdan Pirtošek. I warmly welcome you both and express my high appreciation to take your time to share your expertise with us. So first, allow me to introduce you. Associate Professor Dr. Albinca Pesek began her academic career at the Academy of Music in Ljubljana, where she graduated at the Department of Music Education and the Faculty of Arts at the Department of Educational Sciences. She gained her master's exploring musical abilities, findings, and problems in Weimar, Germany, and her doctoral dissertation on children, parents, and preschool music education in Connecticut in the United States. She defended both dissertations at the Academy of Music in Ljubljana. She started her professional career as a piano and music theory teacher at the music school Grosuplje. Her academic career began at the Academy of Music in Ljubljana. However, after 5 years, she joined the Faculty of Education in Maribor, where she has been lecturing on didactics of music education for over 20 years. Albinca Pesek is the author of didactic material for music education for all grades of primary school. In recent years, she has felt her mission in researching and implementing effects of sound, music, and dance therapy from kindergarten children to the elderly. In October 2016, she started therapist as a Tomatis practitioner, level 1. Zvezdan Pirtošek is a consultant neurologist, head of chair neurology faculty of medicine, University of Ljubljana. Professor of Neurology and Neuroscience and co-founder of the interdisciplinary International Middle European Postgraduate Study of Cognitive Sciences at the University of Ljubljana, Vienna, Budapest, Bratislava, and Zagreb. He serves as the president of Slovenia Brain Council and as the representative of Slovenia in managing board of European a joint program on research and treatment of Alzheimer's disease. His main research interests include neurodegenerative diseases, particularly Parkinson's and Alzheimer's disease, cognitive neuroscience, and ageism as a form of discrimination and prejudice. For this contribution in the field of dementia, President of the Republic distinguished him the Order of Merit of Republic of Slovenia. So, dear Professor Pesek and dear Professor Pirtošek, I kindly invite you to join me in this interview, and I'm really honored and happy to have you here to share your knowledge. So, let's start with today's webinar. Last time, Dr. Anka Slana Ozimic, a cognitive scientist, introduced the basics of sound perception and cognition. And today we're going to go a little bit further with some practical insights how sound and music work in practice with a focus on clinical and educational implications. Professor Pesek, we know that already ancient civilizations like ancient Egyptians, Chinese, or Greeks were aware of the beneficial effects of sound and music. They were using music for healing. Could you tell us more about it?
Okay, Katarina, thank you for this question. Although we said that we are going to skip these topics, but I will try to answer some things. All the ancient civilizations, like we are tomorrow more and more aware, sound therapy is a type of therapy that uses sound to treat physical and mental conditions. The therapy is based on the premise that everything in life, including the human body, is a set of vibrations. And the vibrations become disordered and lose their rhythm, an individual physical and mental state is hurt. Sound therapy is the conscious therapeutic application of sound frequencies for the purposes of healing, and with the intention of bringing the individual back into the state of harmony of the mind, body, and spirit. This can be achieved by using different musical instruments or by generating frequencies nowadays on devices that have been constructed especially for this purpose. Studies have shown that sound therapies can affect brain waves, which causes relaxations and sets the frame for the healing processes. So I would like to say that before the music was the art, it was it was a healing device, healing tool. And all the ancient civilizations were very aware of this, and then and they used a lot of sound and music in their everyday life. They use it in different occasions, like healing, and we can mention also different places where it was applied. We can mention shamans. They know a lot of this. Nowadays we can get a lot of knowledge from these persons. This sound healing is based on the assumption that human body is a set of vibrations that become disordered and lose their rhythm when an illness occurs. In order to understand sound healing better, we need to remind ourselves that atoms, cells, and all living matter vibrate. The chosen sound waves enter the body and to establish balanced waves in the body, where these waves have been altered due to health conditions. The vibration of or the sound is the audible or inaudible form. Ultrasound, infrasound represent energy. Sound has a creative force that shapes matter within us and outside of us. So shall I continue in this way?
We could say, Albinca,
yes,
that a harmony of sound can. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Harmony of sound can enhance harmony in human being, isn't so?
Yeah. Yes. Some affect us pleasantly, while others may have the opposite effect.
Yeah, we're gonna address this question a little bit later.
Okay.
Contemporary neuroscience, especially the emergence of neuroimaging, actually confirms what the ancient civilizations were aware of. Professor Pirtošek, what does neuroscience say about the main effects of sound and music on human brain?
Well, first of all, Katarina, thank you so much for having me here. I'm always a bit nervous when I talk to the artist because you know, you inevitably are aware that talking strictly from the neuroscientific or biological point misses a lot of things. So thank you very much. And it was with great interest that I was listening to Professor Pesek's talks, and I would just add, but first I'll have to share my screen, I hope successfully. So that's my screen. Is it visible?
Yes, it is.
It is visible. You see, I would add that not only in ancient times, as in ancient Egypt or ancient Greece, actually, of course, music with probably healing intentions, or we of course don't know, occurred much, much earlier in the human evolution. So here on the left, we are having what I think science still at the moment considers as the oldest instrument of the humankind. I don't know, maybe something was found in the last few weeks. I'm not aware of that. But it is a small flute with 4 or 5 holes, and it's coming from Germany, near Ulm, in the Danube region. And there are, you know, if people are interested in, you know, there are nice sort of music played on this instrument. This was probably about when they found it at first, they said it must be about 30,000 years ago, but that's largely because the so-called radiocarbon method was did not really see beyond 30,000. It was scientifically exact up to 30,000 years, but not beyond. But now recently they've worked on improvement of this scientific radiocarbon method of dating things, and actually they think it's from 45 or 50,000 years ago. So that's the time when we were leaving Africa and we were coming to Europe. However, being in Slovenia, I can't but to mention another thing, and this is that not only Homo sapiens, we are proud descendants of the wise man Homo sapiens, but that probably we should not be so arrogant as to think that it's only us who really have and cherish music. I guess some people know, some people don't, that it was in Slovenia in, I think, late 90s that this bone was found. That's a femur of a bear with some holes in it, and it is said that this is the cave where Homo neanderthalensis dwelt. I mean, if this is true, it's not completely confirmed, but it's largely, I think, that more and more scientists believe in it. So if this is true, then of course also our extinguished cousin Neanderthal also knew about music. Let us hear for a moment. I hope that will work out. I mean, otherwise I'll ask Jan to help me how this Neanderthal flute from Dewey Barber sounded. Of course, the melody is from Homo sapiens, but the voice, the instrument is probably from Neanderthal. So it was not really only ancient civilization. It was not probably even only Homo sapiens. The biological roots of us needing and cherishing and probably using music are very, very biological. I found this beautiful clip on the internet, and look what happens in the dawn, in the early weeks of our life. I think I have to stop share here, and Jan, could you be so kind and try and run this video of and so it was not only ancient civilization, it is not only Homo sapiens, it is not only Homo neanderthalensis, it is not only little cute babies, but even more. We can go back in evolution and see marvelous things which music produces also in other species music. So the point of my talk really is as it was said, our love to music or our need of music has deep, deep biological roots.
Thank you. Yes, so we go really back to the roots of music. As Albert Einstein said, everything in life is vibration, and Nikola Tesla claimed, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. The importance of vibration and frequencies can be observed in both quotes. Professor Pesek, could you explain the connection between sound, vibration, and human well-being, especially small children who are highly susceptible for the sound environment?
Oh, thank you for this question. I really love this area of my work. So let me perhaps first play the video, so then we can continue with explanation. Okay.
Сонце і поп. І зайчиця прилізла, дробцена і зело лачна пісенниця.
Z tem projektom ozaveščanja in osveščanja vzgojiteljev učiteljev sem pa začela najprej na pedagoški fakulteti v okviru seminarjev, ki so jih prirejali. Sedaj pa to samostojno delam in širim ta znanja. Zdaj skozi ta izobraževanja je šlo že kar precej vzgojiteljev in učiteljev in s pridom uporabljajo to pri svojem pedagoškem delu.
Najboš tudi ti probal? Ti boš tudi ti probal? Ne. Oskači.
V začetku šolskega leta smo dobili informacijo, da bi se vključili v projekt SPES. Najprej sem malo razmišljala, ali sem jaz sploh osebno za to stvar. Potem sem se odločila in sem šla, sem se prijavila v projekt. Tudi osebno se zelo težko sprostim in sem že poskušala ogromno stvari, ampak ko sem pa zaslišala zvoke tibetanskih posod, sem pa spremenila svoje mnenje in sem takoj rekla svoji vodji, da to želim imeti v oddelku. Ko smo se dobivali v telovadnici in smo poslušali te zvoke in potem, kot smo tudi poizkušali sami, kako se udarja, kaj potrebujemo, da se te posode sploh oglašajo, način, kolikokrat udariti, kako se polaga po telesu, tudi ta stik, ki smo ga imeli skupaj z drugimi sodelavkami, ker je to zelo intimna stvar, si mogel poseči v njeno telo, ona v svoje, sprostiti se v tem, da te nekdo drug podajal te zvoke. In je bilo res zelo zanimivo in zelo prijetno. Tudi vsi skupaj, cela skupina, smo se povezali v eno tako skupnost, no, da smo res dihali kot eno.
Kdor želi dati roko v vodo, se zaviha rokava.
Zanimivo mi je bilo to najbolj, da otroci niso prijemali posod, da so se sam prisedli okrog in poslušali zvoke. Nikoli ni nihče na začetku poskušal se posod dotakniti.
V sredo se je pregrizla skozi 3 slive in še je bila lačna.
Tudi ob zgodbah raznoraznih, ko smo jih preberali, otroci so bili zelo umirjeni, zelo koncentrirani, vedno so prisluhnili še z večjo motivacijo zgodbam in zgodbe dojemali drugače, kot če smo jih samo pripovedovali brez glasbe.
Albinca, what was the name of this project?
The name was Space, sproščanje z glasbo in zvoki. This is how to
relaxing with music and
sounds. Yes, and we ran this project 1 year in the kindergarten in Novo Mesto. And we worked also with 1 to 2 year old children who entered the kindergarten for the first time. And the sound helped them to overcome stress of a new environment and separation for parents. Children behaved in a relaxed, calm way with minimum crying. The crying was really reduced. And their sleeping cycle got longer after applying working with sound. It was really amazing how they connected to the sound, and particularly if you could see, they didn't grab these balls, and I have really nice experiences when children come to my house. I have gongs and this a lot of crystal balls and Himalayan balls. But when they come, first they see my piano, say, oh, you have piano, nice. And then they come to the other room and they said, wow, you have gongs, you have these balls. They accept by nature very differently these instruments, like they have some other spirits in their selves. So it's amazing. It's the same with Eldart, the same experience I have.
There are a lot of questions if you could do this project somewhere else, you know? Is this project still going on, or is something that already ended?
No, this project, particular project ended, but now I educate a lot of kindergarten teachers to work with their children, their kindergarten children. And it's a big interest for this. So I can say that it's spreading around the Slovenia, and I'm very grateful for this occasion that I can share this experience with the teachers. And may I mention one more thing? One of my PhD students researched the effect of sounds on children's transition to school. She worked with 6 years old, first grades, that was in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Sarajevo. And compared to control group, the experimental group achieved significant results in the realm of communication skills, social skills, emotional skills, etc. It was really amazing project, and it's still going on in some schools in Sarajevo.
Thank you, Albinca. So we are going back to Professor Pirtošek. So what does music actually does with our brain? What is happening there? Why are the effects of music so beneficial?
Yes, there's an interesting difference between some other cognitive faculties like attention or memory, or language and music. There are several aspects. Let me just illustrate you with, this is the brain. I hope it can be seen.
Oh, yes.
It's not a real brain, but let me draw one of the interesting differences between language and music. Now, language, which actually comes from basically or mainly from the left, our left brain, left hemisphere, which by the way is very analytical, rational. It likes the minutiae, like the details, and it loves labeling names. So the story with language or speech starts somewhere here on the cortex, which is what we call the primary auditory cortex. So this is where we hear, and here is where we understand the language. Now there is a pathway going here in the front of brain where there's another center, and this is called the expression language center, also Broca. So although of course language, and I don't want to say that language and speech is a simple affair, it's very, very complicated, but comparing to music, and now I will turn the brain around, and now I'm in the right hemisphere, which really loves to be gestalt, to be holistic, to be emotional, more emotional than, I mean, the left also is emotional, but left is more sort of optimistic, you know, and activistic, whereas the emotion, the predominant emotion of the right hemisphere, interestingly, is what Americans would call blue, a bit of nostalgia, a bit of sadness, a drop of sadness. But let's see how the music is processed. Also, here the story starts in the primary center for the hearing. We must hear. But then, interestingly, the process of music goes to another very important part of the brain. It can't be here. It's deep here. It's called insula, or island. Why do we need insula? Insula is the center of our visceral emotions. Many people who are listening to music, they would get a visceral response, like I know goosebumps or something like this, you know, or nausea, or an ecstatic sort of feeling of love or ecstasy or something. This, to a large degree, is here in the depth of the brain in this insula. And insula then, when insula creates this visceral feeling, then it sends its processes to 5 other sites. One of the sites is here up where it's our reason. So I have an amazing ability actually to see a logic in the music, to read logic, to read notes or very rational messages or structure. Then the other place where the process would go is deep down. Now what I will do is I will put our brain in the half, and I will tell you that an important center where the insula sends its processes is a circle here around. It's called limbic system, and it's all devoted to emotions. And maybe for our processing of music, 3 points on this circle, on this limbic system, are particularly important. One is called amygdala, and it's a seat of our anxieties, of our fears, of our needs to fight or run away. Then the other one, very important, is the opposite of amygdala. It's called accumbens. It's deep here in the brain, and it gives me this immense pleasure, sometimes leading to addiction. So some people can be actually addicted to the music. And then there is the third part, or the third station on this limbic system. It's here down below our eyes, and it's called hippocampus, and it is where memory dwells. You see, and then there's another part, and this is anterior cingulate here in the middle of the brain. And this is the part which is very, very important for motivation, for my perseverance. I want to do something. I need to do something, sort of also sometimes intellectual or emotional longing for something. You see, so what I want to say is that processing of music, although superficially very much like speech or language, is much, much more complicated. And while in many neurological diseases, what you can see is that in a matter of few months or years, like in dementia, tumor, patients stop to talk. They don't understand speech. They don't talk anymore, what we call aphasia. You will very, very rarely see a patient with even most devastating diseases who would not sing or be open to the message of music, even if well, I deal with Alzheimer's, dementia, with Parkinson's disease, with old people, or I mean, all these are very devastating diseases, which actually, but you know, even at the very end of one's life or one's cognitive, intellectual destiny, one can feel music, one can sing, one can hum, and if we activate this process of the music, unlike the process of language, you know, which is more focused, then we can really, as Professor Pesek would say, maybe listen to the vibration of whatever, of biology, of DNA, of God, of the universe, whatever one wants to shape it in his mind.
I have another question connected with this. Do you know, could you explain to our attendees why in professional musicians or in musicians that are actively involved in music from younger years on for many years, corpus callosum, this is like a bridge between left and right
I'll
hemisphere?
show it here. You see, this is
Yeah.
the white matter here, which, as you want to tell us, links, bridges left and right hemisphere.
Yeah, why is this corpus callosum increased in musicians, and why cerebellum is increased in male musicians, only in male musicians?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. It seems that generally, if we measure activity of both hemispheres, one interesting either advantage or disadvantage, you know, evolution doesn't really, I mean, matter for this is that women are having more synchronized hemispheres. So the activities between left and right hemispheres are generally more synchronized in women. And why in musicians in particular? That's exactly because this processing of listening to the music, of then one important station which I've forgotten earlier is premotor cortex. And this is so the music would go immediately to my center for movement. You see, so insula, which sends a spectrum, broad spectrum of this information, music information, to so distant parts and so different parts of the brain, is sending them to the left and to the right. So regardless whether you're active or passive, but more if you are actively playing a musician, you have larger corpus callosum. So you could say you are always more able, some people would say that you are more able to balance emotion with reason. Of course, some men would say, no, we are more specialized, we are better at left hemisphere. And of course, one of the characteristics of the music, if you take it rather analytically or as a structure, is an interesting activity. It's not still not very sort of understood of cerebellum. Cerebellum is an organ which actually coordinates our movements, which gives us an internal timing, which gives us a structural, one could argue maybe more rational, more structural approach. It's interesting that students of medicine mainly know cerebellum as a motor, you know, of coordination of movement. So a neurologist would do a typical test. If he wants to test cerebellum, he would say, can you touch your nose? And somebody who is having a tumor in the cerebellum, he would do it like this. So coordination of movement, but actually even the greater mystery and beauty of cerebellum is its cognitive and emotional function.
Thank you. We already have some questions, and I think we're going to answer them now because they're connected to what you were talking about. So from Sonia Vojdovic, dear Professor Pirtošek, thank you for an introduction to how brain processes language versus music. What I would like to know is how psychopaths perceive and emotionally respond to music. As far as I know, they have major issues connected with amygdala and are not able to feel fear. Are there any studies answering those questions? Wow, what an interesting question.
Very interesting question. I must confess, I'm not aware of a study. I will now put through my hypothesis, but what I can promise, Katarina, is that I will look for studies, and I will send if our listener, leaves her mail or something, I will give her references. Now, one of the problems with psychopaths, also sociopaths, is that some of them don't have really a loop of back information of what they are doing. So some people say they don't have receptors. Some people would link this very much to the mirror neurons. Now, mirror neurons are interesting neurons, brain cells, which gives me a mirror of how you feel, or I feel like you feel. If you are in pain, my brain is also able to feel pain, not as sharp, not as horrible as this man or woman's pain, but I, as a human being, I'm able to understand, not only to understand, but to feel what you are going through. Now, there are several theories. One is with mirror neurons, so that would actually say that the psychopaths have diminished ability to emotionally feel the music, but that they can cognitively learn that, for example, this music is this or that, or that people. But it's still, I think, a field of research, maybe unmet need. What I can promise is I would look to the literature and send the references, if any.
Okay, we also have two raised hands. So, Vanya, would you address your question? Or Natasha? Okay, then I'm going to continue because they weren't answering. What if that flute sound from bare bone would be played to infants or people with health problems on regular basis? What do you think, Albinca? What would happen? Would children love this sound, or let's say people with health problems? What is your opinion on this question? And then I'm going to ask the same question to Zvezdan.
I suppose it's not harmonious. So, but I have to check. But I suppose they would not accept these sounds. They like very calm, harmonious sounds. So this is my opinion.
Okay, what do you think, Zvezdan?
No, I can't have opinion. I've got no experience with the little things.
You never played the
Children.
flute, Neanderthal flute, to your patients. I presume.
You know, Katarina, that we all have about 3 to 5% of Neanderthal genes. All Homo sapiens. For a very long time, we believed we are two completely different species, but now it was found out that love emerged between Neanderthal and Homo sapiens, and we are having 3 to 5% of genes from Neanderthal.
Okay. Another question. There is a consensus. This is a question from Igor Zenzerovic. There is a consensus in occupational therapy regarding measuring outcomes. Further research is required to continue to identify a best practice protocol for implementing TLQ as an intervention to collect data for evidence-based practice. What would be good directions or methods or ways of analyzing the future qualitative and quantitative data?
Question for me, I guess.
Okay. I do not really know whom to address this question to.
Yeah, it's a sophisticated but very, very needed and very good question. What basically, this question asks is how can we quantify, how can, because if you want to introduce music therapy or hippotherapy or there are so many interesting non-pharmacological therapies which are understated, undervalued, then our listener says you need firm quantitative data, not only anecdotal reports that my patient improved because somebody sang him or because somebody played him flute or piano, so I absolutely agree. I think that at the moment, I'm not aware that occupational therapy or neurology would have a very precise measurement tools, but I think that there's even greater problem, particularly in medicine, between doctors, and this is somehow neglecting non-pharmacological approaches to many diseases. So many doctors who just sort of without commenting roll their eyes and have their thought. But now, particularly in Alzheimer's disease, where we are so helpless with the pills, so helpless, we every day, every week, every month, we discover the huge value of non-pharmacological interventions like music, like singing. But in order to convince the payer, people who will pay for these interventions, there's an absolutely need what our listener said. At the moment, there are not many tools verified.
Thank you. We still have few questions. I would ask everyone just to write your questions because we can't hear you. So please write your question and I'm going to address them to our guests. Because I want Albinca to present the method she's practitioner in. This is Tomatis method. At this point, I'm going to ask her to share knowledge on this with us, and then we're going to continue with answering your questions. So, Albinca, these are actually also clinical implications of sound and music, and at the same time combine it with educational implications. Tomatis method is a natural approach to neurosensory stimulation. Its listening program changed the music and voice in real time to capture the brain's attention and to develop motor, emotional, and cognitive skills. It was developed by the French doctor and researcher Alfred Tomatis. How does the Tomatis method work in practice? Which are its clinical and educational implications with a focus on small children?
Thank you for this question and interpretation. So I have to say I have not such a deep knowledge as Dr. Pirtošek has, because I'm more a practitioner and music educator. So it will be nice to collaborate to some point in the future. But for now, I will share what I know, what I learned. So may I share now my PowerPoint a little bit? I will explain about this method and how we can implement it. So this method, as you mentioned, was invented by Alfred Tomatis. This was, as you said, a French otorhinolaryngologist and surgeon who researched in the relation between the human voice and hearing. Just a second, I have to place, okay. He was the son of Humbert Tomatis, the famous opera singing player. And this father used to send his students who had problems at performing with intonation, rhythm, etc., to treatment to his son. It is interesting to mention that Matisse patients were also very important artists. For example, singer Maria Callas, Sting, French actor Gérard Depardieu, and some other famous personalities. What can we do with this? What is this method enable? Diminishing and even elimination of several disorders. You can briefly read this: general learning disabilities, difficulties at learning foreign languages, difficulties at gaining music skills, singing, playing instruments. So in Italy, there is a big Tomatis center designed especially for professional musicians to help them improve their performances and overcome any specific difficulties such as playing techniques, timbre, tone color, rhythm, etc. Then we can improve hearing, refining ear for music, listening disorders, attention deficit, hyperactivity, dyslexia, stuttering, emotional, communication, and psychomotoric disorders. Late motoric and speech development by children, depression, exhaustion, autistic spectrum disorders, insufficient stroke recuperation, Meniere disease. So this is Meniere disease is hearing and balance disorders, buzzing and ringing in the ears and dizziness, and hormonal imbalances. So I have the personal experience with this last feature. So after my menopause, I experienced severe hot flashes all over my body. The experience of which was very unpleasant and challenging, actually. This lasted for 9 years. After applying Tomatis listening method for 14 days, the problem totally disappeared. So I had no intentions while hearing this music. So it suddenly came, and many others problems that I had, I overcome. So it was my first personal experience before I applied to the other persons. Why does this method works? First of all, it works since it uses music, which is defined as organized sound with rhythm, melody, form, and emotional message, and adapted so that it evokes attention. It is transmitted through the brain and the nervous system, in this way lowering the level of cortisol, stress hormone. Music, which music Tomatis choose? So first of all, music by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Tomatis claimed that Mozart music has a broad and balanced frequency spectrum, similar to the human voice. And then the second music, Gregorian chant. When Tomatis studied the music of Benedictine monks, he found out that Gregorian chants have energizing and at the same time soothing effect. And waltz. By the research, Tomatis found out that the rhythmic course of the waltz stimulates the vestibular system, which is in charge of balance of the body, and consequently improve motoric skills. So what are significant characteristics of the patented method by Alfred Tomatis? First, you will see then a little bit more explained in a short video. This is dynamic contrast. Listening to music by two means through the skull bones. Through the bones, the sound travels 10 times faster than through the air. The brain gets ready for the sound that will come through headphones, through the air. This is the second way of listening. And then music filters, limiting of frequency ranges, and gating, disrupting or interrupting of expecting ranges. This simply means that certain ranges or frequencies are cut all out in this music. Sometimes high frequencies and sometimes low frequencies, depending on what you're working on.
If I can comment on this,
Yeah.
Albinca, when my students listened through these Tomatis earphones, they said that this music really sounds awful because the frequencies are so distorted that they were, this is not the right sound. What is happening? So their brain was really alert. The sound coming from the left ear, from the right ear. So they could never expect what's going on. So yeah, it was really interesting experience for my students.
Thank you for this. It was the same when I first experienced this music. I said, "Oh no, this it's not music from the concert. I will not listen to this music." But I didn't know the background of this. Mm-hmm. But in a few moments, I think 5-10 minutes it takes. Then they feel relaxed. Mm-hmm. And it's then everybody said, "Oh, it's nice. It's I feel relaxed." And after the first, because we are musicians, and something disturbing in the music, we have prejudices that not okay. We cannot listen to the music like this, which is it's full of mistakes, so-called mistakes inside. Mm-hmm. Yeah. This gating, these unexpected switches actually between various frequency ranges from the left or the right side, inserted murmurs and similar. All this stimulate eardrums, causing it to move and change position all the time. It is called air fitness. Further explanation of this mechanism is going to follow in the presentation of video. So yeah, this is equipment, special headphones. You can see special headphones, microphone. There is not seen actually, and program prayer. This is this device here. According to a disorder diagnosed, a therapist downloads a program into the player. There are two sound transmissions. This is first one. You see this on the here, and the second are this earphones actually. Yes. This is mentioned for the skull. I already mentioned sound travels 10 times faster through bones than through the air. All of this creating a special effect in the brains, which improves psychophysical disorders. So let's put it simply, why this Tomatis method works. Our hearing is extremely connected to our physical, spiritual, emotional, and mental health. Inability to hear certain frequencies could be related to a specific imbalance within an individual. On the basis of diagnosis, frequencies are chosen to awake certain areas in the cochlea, which transfers the sound into the brain. I first met this method in India, South India, when I went very, very often. And it was in Auroville when I met the person who led who ran this Tomatis center, because I needed something technical from this center. And then I was curious and asked, what are you doing here in this place? And I got the answer, we have here a sound therapies, and then this lady told me how does it work, and I was curious. She offered me a diagnosis, and I said, okay, how could you diagnose me with the sound, with the frequencies? And then she has such a machine, and I heard some frequencies, and if I heard the frequencies, I raised one hand. If I heard to the other side, I raised up the other hands. And she get after this some kind of diagram, and she told me exactly what's going on in my emotional health, my physical problems, my language problems. I was so surprised so about this diagnosis. It was really true what she said. So it took then 10 years that I studied this method and apply first of all on myself, and then I applied not very wild, but it is quite efficient. I have many testimonials, and the results are long term. So it's I don't know exactly how does it work, but some idea I have. So may I now play this video?
So we could say that music is one of the most magical tools that can increase our well-being, couldn't we?
Definitely, music in different ways, as an art, as a healing tool. And actually, I experienced music beneficials when I was a little child. We used to go many times to Italy, and I bought a lot of vinyl that in this time played, yes, and listened them in my preschool time at home. And I lit the candle and put some flowers and listened to the classical music, and it was like I escaped from the problems my parents had in between, and it was really some place in music, with music, to have the first music therapist, I can say.
Yeah. Thank you, Albinca. Now we have a lot of questions. So let's start with them. Dear Professor Pirtošek, thank you for your interesting insights about the paths of music through the brain. This is the question from Katarina Habe. You mentioned the premotor area and that it also reacts to music. But I was wondering whether this area is acting when we're passively listening to music. I believe you touched upon this topic a bit. So can you please elaborate how music is connected to motor areas of the brain? I think especially listening to music, if I understand correctly this answer.
Yes, I mean, well, absolutely. I mean, this is an astute, observation, and quite, correctly. And of course, we all feel it when we listen to certain music, and we find out that our leg is tapping, that our body is swaying. That's actually very, very similar as a brain process. For example, sometimes when we are thinking some thoughts in silence without talking, but if you put a very sensitive electrodes around your mouth or in your mouth or at the level of your larynx, you can find out that your muscles actually are moving, what we say subclinically. So we can't see it, we can't hear it, but you know, it just proved that thought and movement are like yin and yang. You know, you can't really think without activating some movements, even if you don't see it. And this is why we keep telling our patients with Alzheimer's dementia that keeping moving will improve your thought as well, your cognition.
And Zvezdan, this is not only in patients with dementia. I would suggest also to children, because if you look in our classroom, small children are sitting all the time, but increasing thinking skills, cognitive skills, it's so important to keep them moving when learning. Isn't it so?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, let us continue with another question. How are common components of language and music like timbre and rhythm perceived and processed in the brain? Would you consider these features as being musical or linguistic? This is a question from Murat Ozdemir.
It the uh, the link between language and music, as Professor Pesek mentioned, remains unclear. Um, of course, music was earlier, and there is a lot of overlapping between music and language. But it seems that through evolution, the process emerged from music, which, as I tried to show, and maybe I can show you also on this picture. I'll try to share screen. This was one of my slides, which actually I wanted to show you. That while we are having some centers in, in the brain, also so-called center for beauty, for multimodality beauty, but as far as music is concerned, as far as music is concerned, this process is overwhelming to what we say cortical on the superficial of the brain, subcortical deep in the brain, in the brain stem, so in the oldest parts of the brain, on the left and on the right, in frontal part, in anterior parts where we do particularly movements and cognition and behavior, and in the back parts of our brain where we particularly perceive how what is going on in environment or in our body. So it seems that that from this a gestalt holistic process, which served largely to also to this understanding what is safe or what is pleasant. Then when language emerged through many million years, this process would become narrower and narrower, and it would be shifted to the left hemisphere. So one can say, of course, that language is inferior to music because it's so focused between Wernicke area and Broca area on the left side. But of course, some people would say, no, this is an evolutionary consequence of specializing. So yes, while speech and music, be it perceiving or be it expressing it, overlap very, very much. Absolutely, music is more overwhelming from anatomical point of view, from physiological point of view, and that's why we, when language is extinguished, we would use music in order to either recreate memories, recreate words, speech, and so on. I don't know if I replied to it.
Thank you. Another question from Yorgos Samantas. Thank you for the very interesting presentation. is there any neuroscience research in regards to the reception and processing of music and sound in general by the deaf, or relevantly the effects of musical skills understanding in the brain structure of deaf?
There's limited studies. Again, I'm not aware for the perceiving music of deaf people. I would think that, of course, they can have some. I mean, it also depends on why one is deaf. If one is deaf because of inner ear is completely distracted, that one matter. If one is having a lesion in the lower part of the brain, in the brainstem, that's another thing. If one is deaf, like because of lesion on the superficial brain, on the cortex, then that's again another. And of course, there is something what we call amusia as well, which means being tone deaf. I know basically being deaf to the music, if I can simplify it. So it depends on what we neurologists say where the lesion is. The lower the lesion is, the less likely it is that people would perceive music in such a way as we do. Certainly they can perceive some vibration, and then the more up you go from the ear, if you go to the brainstem, if you go to the subcortical parts of the brain, or even cortical, more possibility is that there will be some activity, but there are what we call cochlear implants, so they can do special operation now, and they can restore your hearing. Similarly, as they can restore you nowadays the vision with special chips put on your retina. And we've got this interesting experience from these people who were deaf before and are listening now, or who were blind before and who see now. And this is also philosophically very interesting question, because it taps for philosophers, it taps to the field of qualia. Is red, which I see, the same red as you see? Can I describe it? Hard question in philosophy. And as a rule, people who were deaf before or blind earlier, and then they suddenly see colors or see outside, or can hear human speech or music, they are immensely surprised. They say, I thought I knew everything about it, but no, really, I had no idea how maybe beautiful it is, or how loud it is, or how colorfully aggressive this is. Some people would say who were colorblind before, and then they suddenly see. You can give them also special glasses so that they can see without operation. And some of them would react, with, oh, horrible, horrible. I mean, all these colors, everything is so wild.
Okay, thank you. Another question from Sonia Vojvodic. I'm working on a project in a field of psycholinguistics. I'm doing a research in processing of information structure on a sentence level. Prosody plays a huge role next to word order in some languages. What I found so far is that aforementioned insula plays a potentially significant role in processing intonation in that area. Prominence, most important information in a sentence. What I find interesting is that prosody plays bigger role than word order in some Slavic languages. Can language thus help us feel and understand music better if our mother tongue is more oriented on intonation, and vice versa when it comes to brain functioning? Thank you very much.
Is this for me or for Professor Pesek?
I think for Dr. Pirtošek more.
Now,
Okay.
of course, I must be honest and say I don't know, but that's very, very interesting. This finding is very interesting. Namely, prosody is an interesting phenomenon, actually. I like it very much. I think that we intuitively love it very much because it's very much musical. And actually, that's the only or one of the rare aspects of the language, speech, which is right hemisphere. So, you know, semantic, I know, grammar, and so on, all of them are predominantly on the left side, but prosody is the right side. And that's a new information, but very interesting information for me. This finding that that activity was very much in insula, and I could understand why. You see, because it's mainly from intonation when you can detect maybe threat. You can detect being deceived. You can detect something what one would say visceral. Maybe I must fear this man. You know, maybe there is in his intonation, in the emotion of his tone or her tone, it's something which awakes visceral, autonomic sort of
Response.
yeah, response in me. That's very, very. I hope you would publish this.
Thank you. Now I have one question for Albinca. I think this is connected also to Tomatis method. Is it possible for the anxiety to block the effect of soothing in that music? Does the soothing effect work regardless on the emotion that the person feels in that moment? What
Yeah,
do you think, Albinca?
yeah, anxiety. I worked with many people and children with anxiety, and it worked. I don't know explain how does it work. But okay, I could explain very popular way, but it's not so. I can just tell you about anxiety. And the results, yes, it can help, but you have the special program. And if the kid is 12 or more, then we can make a diagnosis on the basis of hearing or not hearing the frequency. But if it's not, there are certain already made programs that could help. And the results are okay, and they are lasting. So that's my answer from the praxis. I can just tell this.
Thanks, Albinca. Do you have anything to add, Zvezdan?
No, because I really don't have experience. My only thought when I was listening about the method is that because it's, if I understand it correctly, I mean, I'm not I'm not familiar with it, but if I understand correctly, then lots of input to our brain is unexpected, is distorted, unexpected, something which, as you said, for the first 10 minutes, some people would say, "Oh, it's horrible. I mean, it's so, you know, I can't deal with it." And later on, if I understand correctly, they find I know, calmness, peace, or in it. For me, that was interesting because really, you know, one of the elements where right and left hemisphere do differ is that right hemisphere is very active when things are either new or unexpected or distorted, and then the right hemisphere is the one, you know, who makes a sense out of it, discovers them. You know, there's this eureka, or hello, look, this is this new, I must label it. And then once it's labeled, it's calmed down, then theoretically, at least, of course, I never did some experiment, theoretically it sends it to the left hemisphere, which is not a novelty hemisphere, but it's a very classifying okay, we will call this and this and this, and it will have such and such a structure. I will put it in this place. This is what. So I could imagine that that's. In theory, at least, could be an interesting method actually to excite right
I
hemisphere.
think
Although,
you're
of course, I
right.
must warn you that
Mhm.
these terms, I know, left hemisphere, right hemisphere personality, are misused.
Okay, now a question for both from Igor Zenzerovic. Since philosophy, technology, and innovations has been mentioned, allow me to ask a little question in imagination. 100 years from now, what do you think this kind of research, therapy, and application will look like? What do you think will be possible that is not today? Well, Igor, I have to tell you that was my last question. So it's good that you asked. Who will answer it first? What do you think this kind of research, therapy, and application from sound and music effects will look like? What do you think will be possible that is not possible today?
Should I be first?
Okay.
Okay. Um, so I think, you know, one of the things which fascinates me in neuroscience, I love neuroscience, but one of the things which really fascinates me, how at the end, no, sorry, I wanted to say at the end of 20th century, at the beginning of the 21st century, what neuroscience in many instances is discovering with highly sophisticated instruments, with highly sophisticated data filtering and analyzing, is something what actually ancient philosophers, ancient educators discovered many centuries ago, or even thousands or 2000 years ago. You know, when recently I read this interesting study which proved with highly sophisticated methods that if you repeat a certain topic again and again and again, that you will memorize it better. Repetitio mater studiorum est, said. So this is what people knew, you know, intuitively knew thousands of years ago. And maybe 100 years ago, they did not see a colored picture, a brain, and they would use a stick, you know, and punish pupils if they didn't repeat things. But I think that 100 years ago, in 100 years to come, and I'm talking about music now, that our handling the music or using the music or enjoying the music will be just approximately the same. Only we'll have so many references which I will be then able to give. We will have so many colored pictures. We will have so many genes, you know, genetic. I know amusia, for example, a musia 100 years ago, it was not a problem. Now it is a problem, and it even has a gene, you know, 50%, you know, there's 1% of people, 1 to 4% of people who are amusic, and they have their gene, you know, 50% of possibility you get amusia. So this sort of knowledge will become more and more and more extensive, and will be probably more assured that this is like this because we have numbers and colors and everything. But I don't think that in reality things will change as far as music and enjoyment of music or using music for treatment will change. It will be widely more used, I'm sure.
What do you think, Albinca?
Yeah, well, you already said about Tesla. If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And that's it's opening a big field, that's quantum physics. And it's already done a lot, but it didn't come to the public already. But some things are coming. but people don't believe, although there are many results. I think then that we are going to open to the field, to the quantum field, and perceive the world in total different way. So that's my opinion. I'm following some studies and some experiments. It's amazing what is revealed everywhere around the world. People are very busy with these issues. So I think that will be I can say quantum jump to new fields. And yeah, that's my opinion. And of course, it's very important that we educate teachers and in educational field, I think, and parents to experience sound and be aware of the benefits of the sound and frequencies. So.
But can we, for the end, also address question about negative effects of sounded music? Could you tell us something about this issue, Albinca, because you know a lot about it?
Yeah, we are constantly in the field of not air pollution, but sound pollution. We have all the machines around us. We have traffic and music, which doesn't cause peace inside us. So pollution is everywhere. Sound pollution. You go to the shop, you get some music into your ear. This have of course its own purpose to buy and buy and buy. And in the kindergartens, in the school, they are not aware a lot about these problems. So it's very needed to educate children and not children, as I said, teachers and parents about this, because we cannot find inner peace if we're all the time hearing noise, and this can affect our health, definitely.
Okay, Gal said, I work as a kindergarten teacher. I noticed that preschool children have more and more lack of imagination, which I find very important for life. With music, I often take them into the world of imagination and help them build imagination. Do you have any advice or experience on this regard?
That's a question for me.
Yeah, I think so.
Yes, that's true. The children losing their imagination. So it's a good question, because right now we are currently preparing projects which involve smaller children, aged from 1 to 10. So it was said that modern society bombards us with visual stimulations, videos, movies, ads, images, video games, etc. Children's stories are presented in video forms all the time. This leaves very little space for interpretation, for imagination, and it reduces children's ability to imagine things, to visualize creatively, to create concepts with their minds and their own. The consequence of this is a severely reduced creativity, so in childhood as in adulthood. And this project focuses on audio stimulation, storytelling without visual input, music based on frequencies 432 Hertz. You can find more information online. So if you write 432 frequency and 440, you will find a lot of results. So, and we're going to transmit these stories weekly to all the kindergarten. We hope that we get the permission for this. So this is one way to increase creativity by children. visual
Thank
creativity.
you. Another question for you, Albinca. For which disorders is Tomatis method best used for? Especially in which child disabilities can it give progress? And thank you very much for Tomatis presentation.
Okay, it's a variety of problems. So 3 years ago, we made a project with Music Academy and Music School Arsen, and with Tomatis method for 3 weeks. And at this time, some children and some parents and teachers were in this program. So may I read one testimonial of one mother from this project. Problem was dyslexia and other personal dysfunctions. This was Tonya, 8 years old, a girl. I appreciate it very much to be able to take part in your project with my daughter. In some aspect, she is rebirthed. I see her playing better, concentrates more easily, she understands some more that she has to practice as she comes home and can go out later. In short, she became more independent. At her reading, a real revolution happened. She became a bookworm. The librarian equips us with 10 picture books for her age, and she reads already 5 of them on the following day. I can only take them back and think to borrow something longer, more demanding for her, so that the books will do for the whole 4-week vacations. However, the best part of it is that she enjoys reading. I'm not worried about her future schooling anymore. Namely, I used to worry since she showed no interest so far. She wasn't interested at all in anything particular. Thank you so very much for this opportunity, since the treatment worked incredibly with Tonya. So the other problems are the kids who didn't start to speak at the right time, and it helps really much to speak. And dyspraxia is also one of the problems you can overcome with this method. And then ADD, ADHD problems. And I have then one more case. One guy, 11 years old, was neglected to continue with schooling in the regular school. She was mentioned for the school for the special needs. But after this, it was amazing results. After few therapists, he was following the regular school life, and he was started reading, and when he was relaxed with no obligations, he reads much better than before. Also, his understanding of what he reads rose high into the sky, wrote her mother. So it's many problems you can overcome. When I treat the child, at the same time I gave this equipment also to their parents or brothers, sisters, so the energy of the whole family can move.
Thank you, Albinca, for this really practical and inspiring insight of Tomatis method. Now we have another 2 questions for Professor Pirtošek. Can the brain control in the inner ear back in a sense of controlling the selectivity of hearing or other enhancement of hearing and even selectively to both ears? This is a question from Victor Aubel.
It's a beautiful, very scientific question, actually, and I'm quite happy to be able to reply. Yes, absolutely. You know, when I was a student, we understood the relationship between the receptors, be it in the ear or in the eye, as a one-way story. So you get the light or the sound, and then it travels to the brain. So what we call bottom-up process. But now we know very, very well that actually brains are sending, that there are certain pathways recently discovered, which from the brain would go to your retina, to your eye, and they would adapt in retina in such a way that you would see what preferentially your brain wants to see, or are motivated to see, or to not to see what you don't want to see. And it's very similar to the inner ear, and also, by the way, to the stapedius muscle, which was shown in Professor Pesek's video. So not this muscle, but inside there's a muscle which can make me listen to more attentively. For example, on the party, you know, the cocktail party, I'm able actually to listen. There's lots of people talking, but somebody's talking about me. I heard my name. So I'm somehow able to, my frontal lobe is able actually to ask my inner ear and my stapedius muscle to focus on this. It's a beautiful, so that's top, bottom. It's a beautiful example of how we create our own reality, illusions, however you want to call them.
Thank you, Zvezdan. I noticed that I skipped from more formally addressing to both of you to informally addressing you, because I was talking about topics that are so close to me, and Albinca is my friend. So I apologize if I was too informal, but at the same time, I thank you so much for sharing such a rich knowledge, such rich experiences of you both with all of us. You could see how interested the audience was. So I hope we're gonna continue our discussion in some other occasion. For today, I just want to thank you both, and thank you all that you were attending our second webinar. Next week, we're continuing with more psychological topic, because I was asked to talk about characteristics of cognitive and socio-emotional development in preschool, but connected to sound and music, of course. So I invite you to join us next week also. And I wish you all a pleasant evening. Thank you for attending this webinar. Bye-bye.